Welcome to this video. Today we're going to look at Lightroom Classic, which for many of us is a really important tool for both cataloging our images and also processing them. In this first video we're going to look at some tips and tricks around the importing and cataloging functionality within Lightroom. So whether you're new to Lightroom or perhaps experienced in Lightroom but want to refresh your understanding of these areas, hopefully what it'll do is give you some tips and tricks that'll speed up your workflow in Lightroom Classic. So for our first tip, let's start at the beginning of our workflow and focus on the import of images. This is an area that Lightroom has really matured over many releases, and it now has quite a lot of functionality built into it. No matter whether you're importing from a hard drive, a memory card, or direct from the camera, you'll probably start by going either through File Import or pressing the Import button on the screen at the bottom left. Either way, it brings you to the same import screen. It's this screen that gives you the ability to automate so much of the import of a batch of photos. On the left-hand side, you can select the drive or the source for the photos. Here I'm just pulling them off a hard drive. The right hand side is where most of the automation can be applied, and here you can choose to add all of the batch of photos to a catalogue. Maybe you've been out on a shoot and you've created a catalogue to put all of the photos from that shoot into the catalogue so that you know where you can go to start editing the images. You can rename them, as I do. What I tend to do is rename all of my photos into a sequential order because I have multiple cameras. They all have different naming conventions, and therefore creating some order in that makes it easier to find images if I want to find them in the folders at a later date. You then get down to the develop settings. You can apply a preset to all of the batch of photos if that's appropriate to you. I add my copyright to the metadata. Here you can start to keyword set. Maybe that all of these were woodland photos taken in Surrey. So you can start to create some order and some keywords around the images you're creating. By doing it at this stage and finding keywords that apply to a large batch of images, it saves you quite a lot of time later on and gives you some functionality which we'll come on to. So a lot of functionality on this import page, and it really is worth spending a bit of time just thinking about your workflow and really thinking about how you can use this functionality to automate the import of a batch of photos. So we've come back out to the library module in Lightroom, and the second tip is really about thinking about that desktop. There's a lot of what could be conceived as clutter or surplus information around the edges quite often, and what you can do is you see these arrows down the side. If you click on that, you can actually create a much bigger desktop to actually work on. Now, when we're doing ranking of images and selection of images, we don't need all of the processing information around the sides. If we do need something, we can always hover over the arrow and it pops back up, or you click on it and it becomes permanent. So we're creating a really uncluttered space to work on the ranking and selection of images. And this can really speed up the process of going through quite often a lot of images. So we've created a nice uncluttered desktop. Now let's start using some of that space we've created to really give us a bit more information around the images we're going to be looking at. So what you'll see here is on my images here, you'll see that I've got a ranking at the bottom. I've got the ability to orientate, rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. Up here it tells me that that's copy number 4. Quite often it's got the file name there. It's got the flags in the corner so you can see whether you've accepted it or rejected the image. So if you can't see this information on your grid, go up to View Options or press Ctrl J. And this will bring up the library view options. This is where you control the amount of information and the type of information that's displayed on your grid. What you'll probably find is that Show Grid Extras is not ticked. So tick that and you'll then get the option to add the amount of data and the type of data that you want to your grid to make it workable for your style. So we're at the point in your workflow where you've got to start prioritizing which images you're going to reject and which images you're going to take through to start editing. I have a very simple approach to this. I go through in two passes. In the first pass, I'll use the X button to reject images which quite clearly don't make the cut. For example, they're blurred. I'll then come back and I'll do a second pass and I'll give 1 star to images that I want to put on my shortlist for processing, and 0 stars for those that I'm just going to keep in the background. Now this is a really simple tip, and I'm quite excited about it because anything where you can press one button and it halves the number of keystrokes you make through quite a laborious process if you've got a large batch of images is worth its weight in gold. If when I'm going through I want to give a photo 1 star, I press a 1. If I want to give it a 0 or no stars, I give it a 0. And then you use the cursor keys to move to the next image. If, however, at the beginning you press caps lock and you have caps lock on and you like this image, you want to give it 1 star, you press 1 and you'll see it's jumped straight on to the next image. I'll give that one a 0 star and it auto advances to the next image. By doing this, all you have to do is concentrate on the 1 and 0 keys. You don't have to worry about using the cursor keys to move between images, and you can very quickly move through a large batch of images. It saves so much time that just pressing the caps lock at the beginning. So that's tip number 4. With tip number 5, we're getting to the point in the workflow where actually it's payback for all of the effort for keywording and rating images. Up the top here in this grey area, very small menu area, there's 3 different options. If you press text, you can search against any searchable field. You can select keywords, so you can start to search the keywords that you put in earlier. If you select attribute, you can select all the 1 star images that you've given, whether it's greater than 1 star or equal to 1 star. You can select all of the images that you want to reject. You can select all the images you've given a color rating to. If you select metadata, you can select based on any series of metadata such as aperture, date, camera. You can add in extra columns. In there you can select all images that were taken with a particular camera. So it's quite a powerful way of down selecting and seeing how many images you took with a particular lens, for example. As you develop your workflow and you perhaps you repeat certain filters, you can come over to custom filter and you can then save a filter, again saving even more time for tasks that you repeat based on the way you approach your workflow. Now, obviously, this would still work if you hadn't gone through and put in your keywords and rated your images, but having done that gives you so much more functionality and allows you to automate and speed up a lot of this part of your workflow. So here's the bonus tip. If you come over to the left-hand side and we select the panel, you've got this area called Collections. Now, because you've already gone through and you've perhaps rated or ranked your images, you've added keywords, you can create what's called smart collections. So we could call this one Adrian's Smart Collection. And we could then say we want to match all of the rules below. We want it to have a rating of 1 star. And we want the date, the capture date, to be this month. So this will, when I press create a catalogue which will contain all of the images I took this month and that I've given a 1 star. So it not only creates it creates the smart catalogue when I pressed create there. If I now went back to my previous import and I selected another image and gave that a 1 star and perhaps gave this one here a 1 star, if we come back to our Adrian's Smart Collection, you'll see it's automatically put those into that Smart Collection. So hopefully this gives you an idea that, if you create order in your workflow, there is so much automation that Lightroom can do in the background that really can help you speed up this part of your workflow. I hope this has been helpful and will help speed up this part of your workflow. Any comments, leave them in the comments area below, and I look forward to seeing you on a future video, and we'll look at some top tips for the Develop module in Lightroom.